Okay, so we're going to review a little bit of what we did on Tuesday in Tzadches Siv Hey. We're going to briefly go over to Siv Vav, since Siv Vav is a small Siv. Possibly next week we may be done with Siman Tzadches, possibly. But it's an important review of some of the concepts, some of them which you may be familiar from Basar B'Cholov, including Hanan. Hanan is a big topic. It's an interesting idea that once dairy and meat come together, the combination is what's asur. Each one by themselves, Basar and Chalav, are mutar. It's just a combination, once they are together through the cooking process, as we learn from Lotel Vashel, Gdiv V'chalev Imoy, that they become asur. Therefore, since the two combined together are asur, the entire piece, which was originally a kosher piece of meat, is now asur, treif. There was not enough in the meat to cancel out, to dilute the chalav, and therefore it in itself becomes asur. However, the chidush of Hanan is that if the entire piece of meat would fall into another pot, I need to concern myself if I have shishim, or the necessary amount, to cancel out the flavor coming out from the entire piece of meat, and not just the milk in the meat. We're talking about, let's say, an example of obviously a dish that is meat. Then I would say, well, okay, there's only a little bit of milk in that piece of meat. No, not that entire piece is asur. What if this piece of meat were to fall into a dairy pot? Then obviously I need to concern myself with the piece of meat. But now also with the little bit of milk, because it's Hanan. It's Hanan milk coming out of this piece of meat. As the Mechaber explains in Basar B'Cholav, that a kafela is sometimes useful. When you don't have shishim, when you have shishim, this is a magic number. It works very well in most cases to remove any doubts of whether I can eat this mixture that I have right now. If I identify the Isser, I obviously have to remove the Isser, but I have to know and be concerned about what do I do with this pot, the cholent, that has some Isser that has fallen in there. Regardless of what the Isser is, non-kosher meat, a little bit of milk, I have to concern myself. However, there are times I can use a kafela. But this kafela cannot help me, as we said in Basar B'Cholov, if this piece of meat that fell into the milk was left there long enough after the boiling stopped, because now the milk that was absorbed from this same pot, it's the same milk, the kosher milk that was absorbed into the meat, was emitted, came out somehow. The kafela cannot taste milk and milk, it tastes the same. It's a min b'mino type of situation, and therefore I better have shishim if I want to save the day. The piece of meat, however, remains asur. This piece of meat that is now a Hanan, as a result of the combination of piece of meat and milk, were it to fall into another pot, I need shishim against the entire piece of meat, right? Not just against a little bit of milk. That's Hanan in Basar B'Cholav. There is a machlokes if we use this concept of Hanan in Shar Yisurim. The Mechaber goes along with the Shitas, the Rosh of the Rambam, and I believe the Ramban and the Rashba as well, that Hanan is only applicable in Basar B'Cholav. That's when this becomes a problem. That's when it's an issue. The Ramah goes along with the Shita of Tosfos, that even in Shar Yisurim you say Hanan. That is also the sheet of the Mordechai, the Smag, and I think all the Smag. So that's clear. This topic is discussed in Basar B'Cholav. But that is the way Hanan works. Now, even according to those who say Hanan is also asur b'Shar Yisurim, the good news is it's only midrabanan. And this can make a difference when we have a suffix. Is it a suffix derabanan or is it a suffix deraisa? That's pretty much Hanan in Basar B'Cholav and in Shar Yisurim, involving real food. Okay? In our case, in Taaruvot, we have a scenario where there's no real food involved. You have spoons, forks, knives, utensils. And those tools, those utensils have blias. Instead of going through the whole Mechaber, I'm going to basically give you the conclusions, the shitas, and then it's easier to apply it in, instead of learning it the other way around. What is the machlokes? Machlokes is whether, not do we say chanan in shar isur or not. It's a separate machlokes we have. Do we say chanan in blias? What's a bliya? A bliya is a flavor that has been absorbed. It's no longer the real food. It's no longer a piece of meat. It's no longer milk. It's no longer food. It is a flavor. It's a bliya, a flavor that has been absorbed in a keli. And this flavor can be absorbed either in the pot itself, or the spoon, or whatever other utensil that is being used. These bliyas are in the walls of the keli. They are in the walls of the spoon. They are within the walls of the pot, a bliya. And at any given time, of course, a pot that has been used has bliyas. And how do we remove those bliyas, by the way? Sometimes, depending on what the pot or pan or utensil is made of, you can use hagala or libun to extract bliyas. Even if it was for treif. You like a big pot that you want to use it, you're a caterer, you can kasher it. Kashering properly removes bliyas from the keli. It was treif the keli before. Well, you can make it kosher again. Right, depending on the material. By the way, is that possible with piece of meat that became treif to make hagala to the meat? Let's remove all the bad flavor in the piece of meat. Let's get it extracted. It became treif. Became chanan, whatever. Can I do it? Eventually we learn this concept of EF shelesoichta. Unless maybe technically, maybe you would be able to. If somehow you were able to.
No, we had the famous smitten.
Yeah. That's right. We had the famous example of the Aruch HaShulchan when you have chelev, or smeten, as he calls it, with the chalav, because he's going with the gears of chalav.
Right.
If there was a way to remove it completely, that the issue is completely gone, hey, you've gotten rid of it completely. There may be a little bit of flavor, but it's not significant, not substantial. So yeah, that's a good, very good that you reminded me of. There may be some situations where you can, but otherwise we'll eventually learn that no matter what happens, the piece of meat, if there was no shishim against it, becomes asur. And you don't say efshar l'soichta, that you can extract out the original isser that is balua, that is absorbs into. So what do we do about the bliyas? Do we go ahead and extend the isser concept of chanan to the actual bliyas, or do we say that it only applies to food? So machlokes.
I wanted to ask.
Yes.
We have the ikr is the orisa.
Yes.
So if tom is the orisa, that whenever I have a tom, I need to treat it the same way as though it was substance.
That's correct. That's right.
If so, why do I even have a question on that? If I'm going to treat this tom ke'ir, so I have substance, here I have substance, and this substance happens to be represented merely by taste. But I'm combining meat and milk, even though I only have the taste representation of either a tam ke'ikr. Why do I even get question?
Excellent question. Did everybody understand Elon's question? No. Tam ke'ikr we hold. Tam is flavor, it's like the real McCoy. The substance of tam is asur. Just as much, pretty much, just as much as the real isur. If that's the case, why should there be a machlokes on bliyas? Why should bliyas be any different?
Why would I even have
That's
a
Elon's
doubt
question.
whether it's hanan or tam ke'ikr?
Various explanations are given. I'm only going to give you the Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim says that this is not derech bishul. And since chanan b'shar isurim is taken from basar v'chalav, and basar v'chalav only comes about in an isur way, isur fashion, through bishul, bliyas is not derech bishul. That's why I gave you this one, because I like it.
So that would make a big difference when I'm talking about the piece of hanan, where milk and meat were cooked together,
Right.
and now the hanan bliyas were
Yes.
absorbed, or if I'm talking about bliyas that met up in the pot, and now they're becoming hanan, which they would, which according to the Pri Megadim, they would never make it to become hanan because of
According to the ones who hold there's no chanan,
yeah.
in bliyas, that is one explanation.
But there could be a bliyas of hanan. What is this thing? If I have meat cooking in milk,
Right.
I clean out the pot properly.
Right.
Now I have no more substance of meat left, no more substance of milk left. But
Well,
the bli is
that's a
the
bli of an iser. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a
bli
bli
of
of an
an-
iser, but it's a bli of an iser.
But it's-
You're right. It's a bli of an iser.
Right.
Oh, that came from Chanat, just like any other iser. Very good. Very good. Yeah. So that was a good question, and there are various explanations, but that's the Pri Megadim's explanation. Yeah.
That is peace.
Right.
You would never worry about, even if it had been used that day, bli is not visual. Then you don't have chanan.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be discussing now. in review of that seif. That,
but one thing you have to keep in mind is with a real pea meat substance.
No, I was thinking specifically about just the example we
The
had.
clean spoon and in airspace.
No. The problem is if there's
Blia is not derech
cooking in the
bishul.
pot.
It's not derech bishul. It's not derech bishul. The blias are not derech bishul that is forming a chanan. Chanan is being formed through derech bishul.
See, the meat, every spoon, and you used to, the meat cooking in that pot is derech bishul.
By the way, we will eventually learn what happens if you have two meat close to each other. One is chanan meat. The other one is kosher meat. They're not being cooked together. They're both very hot and touching each other. Do you know that in that situation, you don't need against the entire chanan, just against the belia in the piece of, because it's not derech bishul. You're not cooking the two together. That I have to be concerned myself with the entire piece. So that's also an example of where derech bishul will be important.
In other words, we're not in the right.
They're not, yeah, exactly. There's no, yeah.
So that'll be more like then.
Yes. Okay, so in the blias, and everybody knows by now what we're talking about blias, right? In the spoon and the kli. First of all, what difference will chanan make? Well, chanan will make a difference because right now we're in Sif Hey, we were introduced to the fact that if you know the amount of blia, all you need is 60 against that amount. Good. Great. I don't need to figure against the entire spoon. The problem is, if you do say that there's a possibility of chanan in the blia, then it's not just the blia, the original blia that I have to be concerned with. I have to be concerned with all the blias, because they all have become one entity. That's what chanan is. It's one entity now. It has grown. It's no longer a kazais cholov. Now I have to deal with the entire chanan. So the entire piece of spoon or whatever that I put into the pot has to be calculated. That's where it makes a difference. So the Rashba holds, yes, there is chanan and blias, and the Ramban says no.
Just to avoid confusion, fine. So when right now, even though we're saying spoon, we're not concerned about chanan big. We're concerned about chanan the blias.
Right now, I only spoke about blias.
And we're using the spoon only as a measure of how much blias we could possibly have.
Exactly. I haven't mentioned anything about the keli itself. Just talked about blias. Blias is something that is discussed in Rishonim and Achronim. Okay? Before we go to the keli. Now, what about the case in Basar b'cholov of tipas cholov shenofal lakdeiro b'moichum arikon? Right? When you have drops of milk falling into fleshik pot, which is not keneged aroiter, it's not opposite the lip. It's all the way on top. Remember that poses a problem of chanan too, that whole area. You're told to just wait till it cools off before you pour it.
According to that's cool look.
Yeah. What are we talking about over there? We're talking about blias too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, we're not talking about anything different. Okay, well, even though it doesn't say so, doesn't use the word blias there, it says that piece of pot is chanan. You know, if you read it, you say, what, the piece of pot? You don't understand by reading that lashon. What are we talking about? We don't know about blias yet. Blias are not really discussed at length in Basar b'cholov. Chanan is, but not blias. Chanan and blias is not till here. This is really the main place where the blias are discussed, not there. So therefore, the poskim tell us, that by the way, that case is a case of blias too. The issues there are the issues here, similar. All right. Now, what happens is that there is a Mordechai. Mordechai is a Rishon, and he says something very interesting. And there is a little bit of a machlokes or various opinions as to what he intended. Is there chanan and blias or not? He says it depends. And he says something like this: if the keli is such a keli that you can make hagala, the isur can eventually come out. Metal and wood, you can make hagala, and because you can make hagala, there's no problem with chanan and the blias. On any keli that you can make hagala, there's no chanan in the blia. That's the way it appears to be. That's what he's saying. Okay? Now, I haven't gotten to the entire Mordechai yet, because we're talking still about blias only. Okay? We had another Mordechai earlier on, that we said that the Mechaber said what he said to exclude that Mordechai. You remember what that was? No, I'm sorry, that wasn't the Mordechai, that was a Ravid.
Not a Ravid.
That was a Ravid. But it's a similar idea. The Mechaber said you need 60 keneged the whole Kedera, or keneged kol ma shetochav me'akav, because we don't know how much it absorbed. That was when you put in a kaf shel iser beheter. And he says over there, it doesn't make a difference what kind of pot it is, whether it's earthenware, whether it's metal or wood. What difference? What does he have to tell us that? That it doesn't make a difference. He says that comes to exclude a shita of the Raiva, which we do not hold by, that says that in eitz and mateches, in wood and metal, since you can separate the iser through a gola, you don't have to be mishar bekuloi. Figure out exactly how much came out. You can't figure out how much came out. Okay? In other words, you don't have to figure out keneged kol ha'kedera. What does that mean? It's a big kola, sure. The whole reason why we figure what we figure is because we don't know. And not knowing is a big problem here. Everything is about a suffix over here. So we have to use a shear. He seems to be saying, the Ravid, that if what's involved is metal or wood that you can make a gala, then you don't need the whole thing, because it all comes out anyway. And if you know what that amount is, then good, then just use that amount.
See it though.
Even if you don't see it, yeah. Doesn't make a difference. Now, why did I mention this, Ravid? Because there's a similar idea in the Mordechai. The Mordechai seems to be saying that there's differences in Kalim. If a keli is a keli that you can make hagala to, then there will not be a chanan in the blia. Why? What is happening here? What does hagala do to the blia? Hagala removes the blia. And since hagala removes the blia, it never stays. It's not like it's going to remain there. It actually comes out. It doesn't stay together. They're not really one entity. When you can remove the two, remember we spoke about this with the case of the smetana and the chelev? The shita that holds that once you can remove an iser in its entirety, then you don't say chanan. Remember that, Ila?
Yeah, sure.
If it is really possible, then you don't say chanan. But we don't know. Something remained. How much remained? So there's chanan. But if we knew that it's all gone, then it's gone. The fact that it's gone. Once it's gone, they're not together. Why should we say chanan? Just because they were there for a couple of minutes?
But the other one said that if you could remove, you have to remove it. And
Right.
then you,
No, something else. Yeah. Then you have to remove it. That was the Ramah. Right.
The remorse that you have.
Right.
This one, at some point in the future, move it.
Right.
Not that you have to.
Not that it's already gone.
But technically, it's possible. It's
gone
feasible.
Because you feasible at some point in the future.
But it may be happening now too, as you're cooking now, because technically it's feasible. So it is happening. I'm not concerned about the future. Later, I'm going to make hagala to it. I'm concerned about the food right now. It can happen. It can happen now.
The relationship between the blia
It's
is
boiling.
different.
It's boiling.
It's not permanent.
It's cooking.
First of all,
Yeah.
are we saying right now that Hanan, if it exists,
Yes.
so it's not the Oraisa
In Shari Surim.
in Shara Sunnah.
In Shari Surim. Yeah.
So we're not talking
We're
about...
going to see that there's a difference
so the
between.
Mordechai doesn't apply in Basar B'chala.
We're going to see that the Achroinim, the Maskana, are going to make a distinction between Blias of Basar B'chala versus Blias of Shari
So
Surim.
we're understanding the Mordechai right now to apply exclusively to Shara Surim.
No.
So we're,
As far as the Mordechai right now is
the
concerned,
Mordechai could also be Basar
could
B'chala.
also be Basar B'chala. Right.
Uh-huh.
Right.
But so if because
Yes.
right now I don't know, is the blia there or was it removed?
That's right.
But if if Hanan the blias but Basar B'chala is the Oraisa,
All right.
then Safik the Oraisa lechumra. How can I then say? If I say
No, it's not a
Hanan-
suffix. According to the Mordechai, it would not be a suffix. If it's a keli of metal or wood that the Hagala can resolve,
Right.
then it's not a problem.
It's not a problem. He says the question is why. So what is the question?
No, the problem. Why? Then you go to the Prima Godim.
Is it because of something physical? That's not their visual, you say.
Yeah, you can apply the Prima Godim too.
But why would their visual not apply in their visual?
No, but over there, remember, you have a different problem, right? That those who hold blias The Hanan in Blias, the nature of Kli Cheres is that it remains. So based on what this Chiddush of the Mordechai is saying, that's what this is a bit. We need this Mordechai over here to figure out differences between.
Well, my question,
the Ramah is going to be basing his psak. He has a psak on Lemaisa, what to do with Kli Cheres.
My question on the Mordechai is going to be: is telling us something about, or is the Mordechai telling something about the category?
No, Metzias. Metzias lechora, right?
Because is Hanan actually Metzias?
No, he's saying that you don't have to concern yourself with blias of Hanan and kelim that have the ability of Hagala.
That's understood.
Right.
Now we were looking into what motivates him to say that.
He still holds there's Hanan and blias. See? He himself holds that there's Hanan and blias. Otherwise, why would he say that makes a difference? That's an important point too.
Why would he say that in kelim? So if I have, let's say, blias of kelim.
Right.
No, by this it wouldn't help because I don't even say Hanan. Because is Hanan.
If you hold Bashar Isurim, only if you hold Bashar Isurim. See, that's what we're going to have various.
That's what I'm trying to find out. Are we saying Bashar Isurim?
No. That is why in the chart, if you have a copy of the chart, it's a very good chart. In the chart, you will see a breakdown of the following. Not only different shitas, or whether it's Basar b'Cholov, if it's Shar Isurim, if it's Cheres, if it's Mateches, it's Benyomo or Ino Benyomo.
That's the ultimate result once you understood it all.
Right. We'll get there.
So I can't take the ultimate result and then say, okay, now I know all the answers, but I don't understand the question.
Right.
So to understand again, the right now the Mordechai, step by step, slowly.
Okay,
step by step.
sure.
The Mordechai, we have a pot of Cheres, we have a pot of Melicha. Both of them were used to cook the same amount of Cheles. So the pot of Cheres and the pot of metal both absorbed Chelev.
Right, yes sir.
Now they're being used to cook kosher meat.
Right.
So now both of the pots will absorb kosher meat.
Right.
The Mordechai is going to tell me that in the pot of metal, I do not have a problem of Hanan of Blias, and in the pot of Cheres, I do have now a problem of Hanan of Blias?
Yes.
That's the...
Yes.
Now, so my question...
But before you go on, we will see that it makes a difference whether this pot has been used before or not.
For what?
For anything.
But how would I have the chaylev in there?
I'll tell you why. This is where the Mordechai is important. This little detail, and the Shach helps clarify this. If a pot was used for the first time, okay, and you used it for treif, you know how much treif was used. There are blias of treif in this pot. Does the pot become Hanan?
I mean, unless you say Hanan B'Kalim.
Exactly. Unless you introduce another Hanan, which we haven't yet, that is there Hanan in the Keli itself? Why should there be, you may ask? Well, because there's somebody that says there is. There appears to be.
The Mordechai would say no, because
he's actually the one that says maybe yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's a metal pot,
No. Right. Oh, exactly. But what if it's not a metal pot? Would you say Hanan on the Keli?
Bacheres.
Why would you?
Bacheres.
Bacheres. Why would you say Hanan?
Bacheres, I could say because since you can never really get rid of the absorption.
Yes.
So it is as though the cheres itself became one piece together with the isser that's trapped in it.
Okay.
You don't know.
Even though the cheres, it's not meat, it's not food.
Definitely, and
the whole
meat
thing?
is meat and meat and not milk.
Right.
But once the milk became trapped in the meat through cooking together, so the fact that this molecularly is actually, I can see it's meat, doesn't help me.
So the Shach learns, Shat in the Mordechai, these are the words that are being read into the Mordechai, that perhaps that's what he's saying, that there's an additional concept of Hanan in Kalim themselves. And the Shach says, no, that's impossible. The only way you can have Isser in a Keli being used the first time, become a Hanan, Chelev, not Basar b'Cholov right now. The only time you can have Shar Isurim becoming a Hanan in a Keli, okay, Shar Isurim becoming Hanan. They're not Hanan, they're Shar Isurim.
It was used twice.
Right? Is when there were other blias in this Keli before of kosher food.
Right.
So now you have two blias, the blia of the Isser and the other blias in the keli. So blias, we're back to square one. Is there chanan in blias or not? But if there was never any other blias, you just bought the pot in Kmart. Do they sell pots in the van? Anyway, you just bought it, okay?
They sell bicycles.
Yeah. And and you cooked treif, and it was treif. The pot, the Shach says, can never become a chanan. Since where did we hear such a thing that a piece of cheres, metal, or whatever it is, should become chanan? Food, yes. Blias, maybe. But kalim?
And to add, just ask the real expert, they sell actually pots of Kmart, Barry?
Yeah.
He said yes.
All right.
The whole
Yeah.
product.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the Mordechai. Let's go back to the Mordechai. So the Mordechai basically seems to be saying that it can make a difference. A keli will make a difference if you can make a gola to that or not. Because once you say that, then the issue does not stay intact. It comes out, and it therefore does not pose a problem. Now, what do we do now? We have a Ramah, and we have a Taz that pretty much says similar. That there can be blias in kalim, as they learned from the Mordechai. Now, they're not saying this on their own. There can therefore be blias in the keli, because otherwise, why is he making this? That's what they're bothered, partially, I think. Why is Mordechai making such a distinction between the type of keli? It depends if you can make hagolah. Obviously, because maybe he's inferring that there is chanan in the keli itself too. He doesn't elaborate more than that. So that's why they say, if it's cheres, it could be a big problem. Now, what do the Ramah and Taz hold? They hold that blias, for sure there's a chanan. The question is there a chanan in the keli? So it's not a question whether there's a chanan in blias according to the Ramah. Okay, so far we know the Ramah and the Taz hold chanan in blias. Okay? That seems to be a consensus amongst many poskim. The question was only about the keli itself, because it's not very clear from the Mordechai if that's what he had in mind. But they say yes, the Shach says no. The whole chiluk of cheres and metal concerns blias, not the keli itself. And it was the Mordechai who was very specific. He was explicit that this will make a difference when you say chanan and the blia, but not on the keli. Whoever said such a thing? He says this doesn't make sense that you should say chanan on a piece of earthenware if there's no other blias there. You should say the whole thing is chanan. Why? Whoever said that. So that's the Shach. Now from the tour, it's not clear how he holds. It all depends if you learn it through the Darchei Moshe's way or through the Beis Yosef. And we talked about that on Tuesday, that there were two ways of learning the Torah. Is it Torah quoting the Rashba, or is it Torah saying something else? And very briefly, what's the issue? The issue is that based on the simple understanding and reading of the Torah, the Torah says, let's leave Hanan out of the picture here. All I want to know is how many blias does the spoon have that I'm mixing here? Because I learned a halacha that if I know that there's only a kazais, then all I need is 60 against the kazais. Good. Everybody is in agreement. The problem is when this kaf is not a new spoon. It's a kaf yeshana. And a kaf yeshana basically means it was used more than once. It has more than a kazais blia. It has many blias. Oh, if that's the case, then you need shishim against the entire spoon because you don't know how much it was. If you know it's a kazais, you know. But if you do not know, because it was used many times, that's what kaf yeshana is, then what is the halacha? Kaf yeshana ubas yoima, of course it has to be bas yoima, misharin bekula. Now, comes along the Mechaber and says that there's a second opinion about this halacha of misharin bekula. This is the Ramban. Rashba brings it b'shem Ramban. V'yesh mi she'omer shegam bezu ein tzorech elo samach levatel hakazais shebola. Wow. You've used this spoon many, many times. It has many, many blias. A lot of milk. All I need is the kazais? All I need is a kazais? Why?
And if you need a kazais, if you don't need more than a kazais,
why not against the whole spoon? Yeah, Mechaber says all you need is a kazais.
Brings an opinion like that.
All you need is shishim keneged kazai, the kazais, samar levatel kazai shebola. What is that?
The spoon surface. Let's say you do many times, so you can But really, what difference does it only absorb that space that it's absorbing, which are kazayas?
Depends on the size of the spoon.
Now let me tell you something. This, if you really take this mechaber apart, it doesn't make any sense. And that was part of the difficulty we had in the Tuesday Shiur. I explained that the Ramban cannot say what he says according to the way the mechaber is learning. Everybody would agree you need shishim against the whole spoon. There's no machlokes on that. How could the Ramban say all you need is shishim against the kazayis when there's more than a kazayis?
Only, as we said.
Unless what you're talking about in the mechaber's example is that this is not just a dairy spoon. This is a Hanan spoon. It's a meat spoon that you used for milk, right? And then you're using it for meat again. That's the Rashba's example. That's not the words of the Torah. That's what complicates this seif, this mechaber. Mechaber, where are you taking this from? Are you quoting the Torah, which he appears to be? The Torah doesn't say that. Not in those words. The Torah doesn't have a concern about Hanan. The Torah just says, if you have a spoon that was used numerous times for the milk, then you need 60 against the whole spoon, not against just kazayis.
Like the Ramah is saying, because you don't know how much it absorbed. The
Yeah,
Ramah says that
yeah,
you have
yes,
mechaber
right.
expressly. To explain the mechaber, the Ramah says that.
No, not exactly. The Ramah adds in that you don't say gabi kli chaticho nasa nevela.
No, but later.
And later on, he said, "Kol ma shebolo nasa iser."
Yeah.
That's Hanan.
אין צריך אלא 60 לבטל הכזב שבעלה, ולא עמלה לגבי החתיכה מהסוג, ולא עמלה לגבי אפילו לא בו אסור.
Okay? Anyway, yeah, the Ramah explains it according to the Mechaber Shita. Even though in the Darchei Moshe he explains the Torah differently.
Here, no, but say, אבל כף ישנה,
right.
ובת יומא,
Right.
משאלים בכולה,
Right.
זה לבמה, לכל מה שבעלה.
Nasa Isur? Nasa Isur?
ולא...
What Isur? Ilan, but what Isur? What Isur? It's only milk.
Because but all the milk that the spoon absorbed during the whole time, according to the Ramah,
Right.
all the milk that the spoon absorbed during the whole 24 hours,
Right.
once it was put into the pot with the meat, became an Isser.
You can say that, but the Poshup Shah he's not saying that. Poshup Shah he's explaining the Mechaber.
Yeah.
That Mechaber is learning that this is Hanan. The Chol Ma Shebola now has become Isur
Now it's become Isser.
because of Hanan.
Now it's become Isser.
Right, but it's not that the entire milk is Isur.
It was a milk spoon
It was a milk spoon and
and a meat pot.
right.
So when you're saying it now became an Isser, you're saying that the blias of milk in the spoon because of the meat in the pot became an Isser.
No, that's not the problem here. The problem is I need to know how much to be Mishire against the spoon.
Right.
Do I Mishire against only a kazayis milk?
Yeah.
Or do I need the whole spoon? The Torah says Pashut. If I know it's a kazayis, I only use it once. If I use it more than once, I need shishim against the entire spoon. Because the spoon has more than a kazayis bliya. Very simple. The Mechaber doesn't seem to be saying that because he gets stuck over here. I mean, we get stuck, he doesn't get stuck.
I have a question with
Yeah.
the Mechaber even earlier.
Yeah, but one second. But so let me just finish this point. And the Ramah explains the Mechaber based on the way Mechaber really learns in the Beis Yosef. That the Kol Mashebola Nase Isur, he's talking about a Hanan situation, like you said. That it was a meat spoon, not a dairy spoon. Yeah, otherwise you don't understand it.
No,
Otherwise,
even before. I want to show you something. I'm curious whether you agree with me.
no, you're right. It could even be before. Why? Because the case of before is not an Beis Yoma.
No. Here, the Ben Yoma that absorbed a kazais of milk.
Then there's not a meat spoon.
The Ben Yoma that absorbed a kazais of milk.
Yes.
If it's a Ben Yoma,
Right.
then
It was the first time it was
during the
used.
whole day, it what?
It was the first time it was used.
It was Yeshana in Ben Yoma. It wasn't the first
Are you talking about Kaf Yeshana or Kaf Chadasha?
We're saying. Aval Kaf Yeshana Uvat Yoma.
Sure, it has to be Bas Yoma. If it's not a Bas Yoma, all the time is Pagum.
What did it absorb all day long?
What? Just milk?
And then why does he tell me that it absorbed only a kazais of milk?
No, only the first case that it absorbed the kazais.
But he continues, he says,
כף ישונו.
שגם בזה אין צריך אלא 60 לבטל הכזית. So
Right.
you see that in this כף ישנה שבת יומא,
What's a Kaf Yeshana that is also Bas Yoma? How could it be an old spoon that is also a Bas
It was
Yoma?
used
It
within
was
the
used
24
numerous
hours
times.
repeatedly.
Repeatedly, right.
but Why does the Mechaber say in his own words,
Right?
there are those who say you need 60 only against the kazais that it absorbs?
That was my question.
What kazais?
Well, that was my question.
Kazais of what?
Exactly, kazais of milk.
So what did it absorb all day long? A kazais of milk?
That was my question. The Mechaber is not following the Torah. It doesn't make sense. The Ramah into the Mechaber doesn't make sense. One second. The Yesh Misha'omer doesn't exactly make sense.
But once you but let's take it a step at a time. When the Mechaber says Yesh Misha'omer Shetzayich Shishim Keneged HaKazais.
Before I get to the Yesh Misha'omer, it's very unclear. Once I learned the Yesh Misha'omer, I say, wow, the Mechaber must be learning something different than the Torah. Because otherwise I can't understand the Yesh Misha'omer.
We haven't read the Torah.
No, otherwise, I agree with you. That's the question here. What is the Mechaber talking about?
No, but that shows you...
That shows you what?
That shows you that when the Mechaber was talking about, it was used for milk...
Right.
He still had in mind the first example, where the quantity of milk that it was used with was a kazais. The example continues till the end. He begins with a kazais of milk, with a kaf chadasha or bat yoma.
Yes, you're right.
And ends with a kazais of milk.
It does.
So throughout Hey, the quantity of milk that was absorbed is always constant a kazais.
Yes.
Anything else that spoon may have absorbed when he starts off with
only after you learn and read the Yesh Misha'omer do you have to conclude that together with the Ramah's explanation of the Mechaber. Only then could you conclude that, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. And if you learn the Beis Yosef, which is the Mechaber, right? And you say to yourself, why are you bringing in Hanan in here? Are you quoting the Torah or not? Or are you quoting the Rashba? No, I'm quoting the Torah because the Torah quote the Rashba. Not necessarily. The Torah is not necessarily quoting word for word the Rashba. The Torah is very, very clear, and that's what the Darcha Moshe learns, and that's what the Taz learns in the Torah, that he's not talking about Hanan here. We don't have Hanan here. We're concerned about the issue of, can you use 60 against a kazais? Yes, you can if you know it's a kazais. If you use that spoon many, many times, you can't use 60 keneged the kazais. Why? Because there's no more kazais. There's many more kazais, and that's all.
What kazais?
Right?
So,
therefore, one second.
Why would it even occur to you to want to say 60 against a kazais if it was used all day long for milk of an unknown quantity?
No, that's what he's saying, because we don't know how much it was Melicha.
So the second part is exactly the same part over again, only with a different quantity. One time he says, you know it's a kazais.
Exactly.
You don't know how much it is.
So that's what the Mechaber is telling us in the Pashup Shot in the Torah. In the Torah, that's the Chidush. The Chidush is, if you know it's a kazais, you can figure against a kazais. You don't have to figure against the entire spoon, which we saw in Sif Dalet that you sometimes do. If you know you know the amount. But what's an example of where you don't know the amount? I've used it numerous times in the day. Comes along the Mechaber and says something different. Apparently from his language, we understand that here, it's not a problem of numerous times. Kaf Yeshana, absorbing, like Ilan says, a kazayis chalav is a different problem. It's a problem of Hanan in the Blias, which is why this halacha is the source. This is pretty much the place where we have the machlokes, the opinions of whether we say Hanan in Blias or not, as a result of the Beis Yosef in the name of the Rashba. But Yilan, you understand that we do not know this clearly. It doesn't make sense from what the Mechaber is saying if he's quoting the Torah, because the Torah doesn't say that. There's no problem of Hanan in the Torah.
I never saw the Torah.
Yeah, you have. That's why it's important to learn the Torah. That's what.
I'm saying. Maybe we should
Yeah. That's what. If you learn the Torah, you'll see why the Dorche Moshe has a problem with Mechaber. He says, Mechaber, where do you take? Who told you the Torah says that? That there's Hanan in Blias? We don't know, by the way, what the Torah will hold about Blias, because he doesn't say it clearly. The Mechaber seems to be learning in the Torah that he will hold like the Rashba, that there's Hanan in Blias. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah is not talking about Hanan. Now, so the Yesh Mishe Omer is the Ramban, that there's no Hanan in Blias. That's clear. That we do know. The Ramban holds there's no Hanan in Blias. That's fine. But what if this was not Hanan? What if there was a dairy spoon that you used it numerous times during the day? Everybody should agree that you need against the entire spoon. So what's the Chiddush here? That, you see why? If he says Samach Keneged a Kazais, because there's more than a Kazais. The Yoh. What do you mean? That's why it's a little bit difficult to figure out what the Mechaber is talking about unless you learn the Beis Yosef. If you don't learn the Beis Yosef, you cannot know Ilan, you cannot possibly easily know what the Mechaber is talking about.
I understand easily and agree with you entirely. When he says in the end of Sif Dalet,
Right.
שאיננו יודעים כמה בלעו בין שהם של חלץ או של עץ או מתכת. We don't know how much it absorbs. Then he goes in the hay, he says, אם ידוע כמה הוא האיסור.
Right.
So he finished off saying Dalit, if we don't know, we need 60
Right.
against the whole part of the spoon that was inserted.
Right.
Now he starts off here and says, and if we do, how much?
You don't think you'll
So
speak
he
out?
needs 60 only against
Right.
the known quantity.
Right.
Why would he then continue by saying over again? And if you don't know how much, you need 60 against the whole spoon.
Because he's telling you the Chiddush. Another Chiddush. But Kaf Yeshana, Ubas Yoima,
Well, that was the end of 4.
Mesharim Mikula, because obviously it has more than a Kazais.
You told us in Steve Dalit?
In a sense, yeah.
Yeah. So you
Similar.
would be saying, at
Right.
the end of Steve Dalit, if we don't know how much it is, then we need against the whole part of the spoon that was inserted.
See,
In
the
Steve
problem
Dalit,
is, what's the real problem? Lack of clarity. Why is there lack of clarity? For a simple reason. Nowhere does the Chaber say in clear, not English, in clear Hebrew, nowhere does he say Chati Chanas Nevelim Blias, Yesh or Ein. That halacha, that concept is never said in words.
Never spoken out.
Never spoken out. It is in Basar B'Chalav. So, how do
It is in Basar B'Chala? We're talking about Basar B'Chala.
No, Hanan. In Basar B'Chalav, in Hilchas Basar
I
B'Chalav.
mean in substance.
Yes.
But not in Blias.
Yes, in substance, yeah. All of a sudden, and this is a brand new concept, Hanan and Blias. You would expect that he would be more explicit, he would clarify it. He doesn't. So I'm thinking, if I'm learning this straight, I'm just following it through. How much do I need? Well, if I have a kazais, all I need is a kazais. Shishum, I get a kazais. But if I use it more than once, obviously it's more than a kazais because I use it more than once. But there's no reason for me to suspect anything else, unless I learn the Beis Yosef. So that's where you have the parenthesis here to clarify that. By the way, what's the chiddush? Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot another point. What's the chiddush of the second portion of the Mechaber? All you need is shish keneged kazais, plus I have some extra news for you. In other words, the Mechaber is also saying, and he says that pretty much it's not only that I can measure against the kazais that I have knowledge of. What should I think? I mean, would I think anything differently? Yes, I would think that perhaps, maybe we say the whole thing becomes usher.
I have a big problem.
Yeah.
We're talking about halav and not chalev.
Right.
Before the spoon was inserted into the meat pot.
Exactly.
Why on earth would I even wonder about whether the keli be hanan?
Yeah.
There's no isser in
Exactly.
the keli.
That's what made it difficult to learn.
So that's the
Even the words in the parentheses that are inserted to add information. What's the new information?
of the Ramah.
The new information of the mode that the keli does never pose a problem.
That's why the Ramah says if it was an isser.
Right? Right. לא אמרין לגבי כריכת יחנס הנבלס, אפילו נראה בו איסור, אפילו נראה בו איסור. In other words, the Ramah says that, exactly, the Ramah says that even if it was not chalav, it was an isser,
Right.
we don't say the chiddush, there's no such a thing, that the keli becomes chanan. So therefore, don't think that if all I had a kazai's treif meat, the keli becomes chanan. If I know for sure it's a kazai's treif meat, that's all I need. Is shishu keneged kazai's, even if it says so. Therefore, but if it's chalav,
but the mechaber wouldn't. By the mechaber, it's not conclusive.
right?
The mechaber could hypothetically hold
talking about-
if it was chalev, it didn't become an isser. It was chalav he's talking about. So
Exactly. That's what was complicated here, because the mechaber's example is kazai's chalav, not chalev, supposedly.
Yeah.
And if it's a chalav, what are you telling me in the parentheses? Unless you're saying that the Ramah is explaining that, by the way, if this would be an isser and not chalav, it would not render the keli chanan.
And he's not explaining the mechaber. He's adding.
He's adding his own information. Exactly. That even the mechaber would hold that, and that's true. The mechaber would hold that there's no chanan in the keli.
For sure, because he's holding no Mashar Surim anyway.
Yes.
Look up.
Even Basar B'Chalav. Somehow.
Because once Basar B'Chalav becomes Hanan, it's a Shari Surim, according to some.
Right, the Chora, yeah. So anyway, So that's where the mechaber is difficult. It's what are you talking about here? Okay, anyway, so we reviewed a little bit of difficulty. The rest of the seif says the Ramah says asvara rishona ikar. The main first svara is ikar, which is usually the klal, by the way, in the mechaber. When he says mi yesh mi shoimer, that usually we follow the first opinion. So here he gives us the example that he himself speaks about, or that is quoted in Basar b'cholov about a tip of shenofel like there. That there the issue is blias. So here the issue is blias. That's the Mordechai. There's also a difference between whether it was used before or not. Rak ben kli cheres l'shar kelim. That's where you can find differences. Ve'oimrim, the bekli cheres, the ef shole hafri da isu, you cannot remove the iser alidei hagolo. I mean, hakli nase nevela, hakli nase nevela. The kli or the bli is nekli? It's not clear. Hakli nase nevela, avalo b'shar kelim. And the Ramah says, "V'tov lochush lechumra." It's important to be concerned about this. If you're dealing with a kli cheres, therefore, you have to be concerned about it. If it's a kli cheres, it would be more of an issue than if it's not a kli cheres. In other words, if you have to be figuring out to resolve a problem, whether do we have shishim or not, it's chanan b'shar yisurim or not, chanan in blias or not, you have all these things to consider. If it's a kli cheres, you may need to be machmer.
But the Ramah holds chanan b'shar yisurim.
Right, but I'm saying, but in case you want to be lenient, you have many sfeikas. You can be lenient because of chanan b'shar yisurim. You can be lenient because some say there's no chanan in blias. But if it's kli cheres, don't be too lenient. That's what the Ramah is saying. When the Ramah is saying tov lochush lechumra, he's talking about kli cheres in general.
But you're saying that he's not saying that by kli cheres you should as kli itself as chanan.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
But the kli itself is chanan.
That we have to take the Mordechai's words seriously, in kli cheres especially. As we will see in the chart. Just a quick detail before we cover the last seif. Remember about chanan in shar yisurim? Ramah, chanan in shar yisurim? Just remember, keep it in mind as we're learning Taaruvot, as we're reviewing Basar b'chalav a little bit, that the Ramah makes conditions for chanan in shar yisurim.
Oh, something to discuss.
Okay? It's not such a simple thing to say chanan in shar yisurim. It has to be an isur davuk. It has to be outside of the gedera, one or the other.
I want to change.
Yeah. It's not such a simple matter to say chanan b'shar according to the Ramah. Blanket chanan in shar yisurim. No, it has to meet certain conditions for it to become a real chanan in shar yisurim. Otherwise, we're not going to always say chanan in shar, even according to the Ramah. So that's an important detail just to keep in mind that perhaps can help us distinguish whether a particular scenario will become a problem of chanan or not. Well, depends on what's involved. Is it an isur davuk or not? Okay? So when you're talking about blias, which is even less of an issue, maybe we can be lenient. Obviously, the Ramah is not lenient in blias, okay? Because blias is all one thing. It's absorbed together, but it could help us understand that in certain situations you can be lenient as a result of various combinations, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But before we get to the quick review of the maskana and halacha of this seif, let's just see the next seif. It's a short seif. This is based on the Gemara in Tzadik Ches, where you had a case there. The Gemara says where a piece of fat, forbidden fat, fell into a boiling pot, a dikula, as the Gemara mentions over there, which is a boiling pot. In other words, whatever was on the fire was boiling. So what do you have falling into the pot? So, the one who was confronted with the situation says, "Oh, all I need is 30. It's a chatzizais."
Yeah, 30 full slices. I thought.
No, 30 chatzizais. Yeah.
That I don't understand.
All I would need, right? All I would need is 30. It's a chatzizais. So the Gemara's conclusion is: don't be mezalzel in shiurim d'rabbanan. Don't be disrespectful. Don't look down or don't minimize. Chacham said you have to use a shear of 60. You have to use a 60 in all situations. What do you mean in all situations? What's the havamina? I mean, like Elam was trying to say here, why think anything differently? Chatzi shear is not a shear. Okay? It's not a shear. Maybe we can be more lenient, even though we hold, There's a machlokes. Chatzi shir is the raisa, asur. But there is an opinion that holds it's midrabanan. So what's the chiddush? The chiddush is over there, based on what the Gemara says, is that even things that are also because the Rabbanan said they were also, like according to the ones that hold Chatzi Shir of the Rabbanan, you will still need the entire Shishim.
60 halves?
Huh?
The 60
Right,
halves?
exactly.
Halves.
Right, you will need Shishim, in other words, connected that amount. Or, as the Taz explains, an additional point about this halacha, is that the Chatzi Zayis Shel Isur Shenis Arv Beheter, so Shishim Chatzai Zayis, so we're talking about 60 half olives, Heter Levator, is also applicable if the Isur is the Rabbanan. In other words, not only if you hold Chatzi Shir is the Rabbanan, but even if we're talking about an Isur the Rabbanan. There's, for example, machlokes whether you say Chanan in milk the Rabbanan, in a Basar B'chalav the Rabbanan, I should say.
Even insulting for
Yeah,
quickly.
not Kachal. Kachal was a separate kind of a situation. The Rabbanan were machmir. But do you say Chanan? Not if we answer it. Okay? Do we say Chanan? So again, the issue of whether we apply something in the Rabbanan is always going to be an issue. Chanan in Shari Surim in itself, it's a real Isur. It's a real Isur, but the Shari Surim is the Rabbanan part. The Chanan is the
If I
Rabbanan.
cook chicken and milk.
Exactly, that would be the case.
With the
That's the Shari. We don't say Lechara. We don't say Chanan in the Rabbanan, but in this case of requiring the 60 amounts in Sivav, you would require it even if it's a Chatzi Shir. But you would need, like you said, a Chatzi Zayis, Shishim Chatzi Zayis, 60 half olives, Heter Levatloi. Because we hold, it's Chatzi Shir is also in the Torah. The only difference is you don't get Malchus on it. Okay, just real quickly, I want to go over with you the chart. The chart is a nice chart. It brings in all the shitas so we have an idea of what's going on. And we'll wrap it up over here. Chanan, do we say Chanan in Kalim? The question is whether we say Chanan in Kalim and in the Belias. So we have the Mechaber. The Mechaber says.
By the way, most short.
Right. Okay. So that's why I want to for the shir let it be recorded and let it be heard. If we're talking about Kli Cheres, is there any indication of the Mechaber or what he says? Basically, there is. I mean, there is an indication that he would hold that there's no Chanan in Kli Cheres any more than any other Kalim. He doesn't make that distinction. Okay. However, the Ramah seems to be learning that there is a din of Chanan in Basar B'chalav at least. He's makbid, right? We said before that he wants to be machmer. And this is in the Kli Cheres, remember. What about Shari Surim? Shari Surim, even though he holds there is Chanan in Shari Surim, to say Shar Isurim Chanan in a Kli Cheres, he's matri if there's a hefsid. Why? Because there are shitas that hold there's no Chanan in Shari Surim. And there are shitas that hold there's no Chanan in Blias. And in the Keli itself, it's just a Mordechai, according to the way he learns. The Taz, Basar B'chalav, even if you have a Hefsid Meruba, there's a din of Chanan, he learns like the Ramah, pretty much like the Ramah, he learns Pshat in the Mordechai. So, he says Basar B'chalav is Basar B'chalav, because Basar B'chalav is the real Chanan. In Shar Yisurim, we're a Mekel, according to the Taz, even without a Hefsid. Why? Because he says we have the leniency of Shari Surim. There's no Chanan in Shari Surim, with the rice at least. So you could be Mekel in Shari Surim in a Klei Cheres. The Shach, no way. There's no Chanan in the Klei Cheres, in the Keli itself. Blias of Ben Yoima in a Klei Cheres. So what does Blias in a Ben Yoima Klei Cheres means? That means that there are Blias there. It's not just the Klei Cheres itself. It's the whole Blias.
We're not talking now about the subject.
Exactly. Not anymore. Now it's the Blias. Blias of Ben Yom and Kli Cheres. So we have like this. The Mechaber, there's a din of Chanan. It's Blias. Mechaber holds Blias. He holds like the Rashba. There is Chanan in Blias. He doesn't hold by Shari Surim, so that's not an issue. Now, since the Mechaber holds Chanan in Blias, he doesn't ever make a distinction of what kind of a keli it is. So in the case of Basar B'chalav, there will be Chanan in the Blias, but only in the Blias. Ramah, he holds in Basar B'chalav. It's simple. if according to the Ramah way of learning in the Mordechai that the keli itself becomes an nevela, it's obvious that even the blias would. Shar Isurim, if there is a hefsed, they do not have the din of Hanan. Even in a Ben Yoima, in Shar Isurim, in blias, the Ramah is Meiko, if there's a hefsed. The Taz, Basar b'chalav, since the walls, like the Ramah, are Hanan, so it's not relevant if the blias become Hanan or not. The walls are Hanan, so kol shek in the blias. In Shar Yisurim, if there's a hefsed, they do not have the din of Hanan. Similar to the Ramah. The Taz and the Ramah are very similar. The Shach, here we're not talking about the keli anymore, we're talking about the blias. So in Basar b'chalav, he holds, even if there's a hefsed, there's still Hanan. He holds there's Hanan in blias. But in Shar Yisurim, if there's a hefsed, they do not have a din of Hanan. Again, there's a leniency in Shar Yisurim that as it is, it's a Rabbanan, as it is as some who hold that there's no Hanan in blias, so you have on who to rely. So if there's a hefsed, a big loss, you can rely on that. In Shar Yisurim. So what do we see so far? That Basar b'chalav seems to be across the board a stricter issue, a stricter problem in blias. What about blias binyoma in Shar kelim, wood or metal? That is based on what we heard, this chiddush, that there may be other kelim can make a difference. So according to the Mechaber, Basar b'chalav makes no difference. He doesn't seem to make it that distinction. So therefore the halacha would still be the same Hanan in blias of metal just as much as in blias in anything else. Shar Yisurim does not make a difference. He doesn't hold of Hanan. The Ramah, Basar b'chalav, even if there's a big hefsed, you say Hanan in metal or wood. Shar Yisurim, if there's a hefsed, it does not become a Hanan. How about the Taz? Basar b'chalav, even in a hefsed becomes nevela, makes no distinction between metal. Shar Yisurim, even if there's no hefsed, they do not have the din of Hanan. But this is a chidush. So the Taz is telling us that in Shar Yisurim of Hanan, in a metal keli, there is somebody that tells us that we're saved. That because it's a metal keli, we don't have to worry about the Hanan. So the Taz says that in Shar Yisurim only we can rely on that heter. That if it's a metal keli, it won't be a problem, even if there is no hefsed. In Basar b'chalav, we have to be machmer. So why is the Taz making this distinction? Because obviously we have leniencies of blias, we have a leniency of not everybody holds Shar Yisurim, we have various things. And you have a metal keli? Great! It's an additional help. You don't even have to have a hefsed. And the Shach, Basar b'chalav, only in a hefsed meruba does the blias not become Hanan. So the Shach is even more lenient than the Taz, that if it's metal, maybe that could be a big help. But he says that it would have to be a hefsed, a big hefsed. If it's Shar Yisurim, even if it's a small hefsed, you can rely. So what do we see? We have an additional leniency of Hanan in blias when you're talking about metal kelim. In other words, based on that opinion, when we learn the Mordechai, that there is a distinction between kelim, as it is, we have leniency of some who say that there are no blias, no Hanan in blias, like the Ramban. As it is, we know that Shar Yisurim is midrabanan. So if it's a metal keli too, if it ever comes up, if there ever is an issue, we do have the Shach and Taz. If there's a hefsed, we can rely on them. Okay, I think we'll leave it at this, and B'ezrat Hashem next week we'll continue on to the next series.